Okay. Oh my dear God, I hope this works out good, right? Okay, so hello, welcome to Art Follies. Haven't done this show in over a decade, right? Okay, so I found a public access in Long Beach, so now I can do the show again. So, wow, there's so much to tell you about. So I got inspired by something, the Alton Brown show, Reloaded, where he took his original show, he had this show like Good Eats, and that was like 20 years ago or something, and then he decided to like basically re-edit it, because like 20 years later he was like, oh well, I forgot to put this in, or he's really into like the history of food or something, so like he's like, oh, I didn't put it within the context of blah blah blah, so he revisited his original show and re-edited it, and he named it Reloaded. So I got inspired by that, and I took my original show that I had in Seattle at the public access and in Hawaii at the public access there when I lived there, and I was like, I could redo it. I can add stuff to it. I purposely decided this episode to re-edit the paper mache episode, because for whatever reason it had the most views, and when I was watching it I was like, oh, I can't believe I didn't tell him blah blah blah, I can't believe I didn't. So yeah, I decided to re-edit my original episodes, hopefully adding more stuff that I didn't get to put in the first time, or for whatever reason it just slipped my mind, or now I've researched it more and so I know a little bit more about it, whatever. So this very first episode of Reloaded, or I think I should call mine Art Follies Re-Edited, right? I don't want to just exactly take his title, Reloaded, but I was inspired by him. So yeah, this very first episode is the original paper mache episode. I did it in Seattle. Okay, so when you make paper mache sculptures, you can use wheat paste, which most people use like flour paste. They'll just use like flour and water. Or you can make rice paste. Rice paste is a little bit stickier, but that's good for making paper mache and your rice. So it's best to use rice in a rice cooker, because then it won't get overcooked. Although I made not enough rice, so it might get overcooked. And then you put it in a pan. Make sure you don't overcook the rice, because then that's going to defeat the purpose of making rice paste, because it won't be sticky enough to have the paper stick together. But see how the rice is sticking to my fingers? Then you put a little bit of extra water, not too much. Can't water it down too much. And then cook it on low. Oh. Extra water in there, and you want to mush it up really good. And just basically only cook this till it gets mushy, but not overcooking it. And then that's going to be rice paste. Mashing it up works better too. Now, if you're going to paper mache an actual object instead of paper macheing a balloon, then you want to put like some kind of lubricant on it, like mostly like you want to put like, what is it? Maybe baby oil or petroleum jelly or something, because Otherwise, the paper mache will stick to the object. The paper mache sticks to this, I don't care. I'm just going to pop the balloon. Like, for example, when I made this paper mache, I paper mache'd my shoes, my stripper shoes. And so I put petroleum jelly all over the shoes, and then I put the paper mache stuff on. So, yeah. So, yeah. But I don't care about this. So when you tear up the paper, you tear it up in long strips like this. Ooh. Ooh. And you see, it's a really nice, clean, even rip. It's because I'm ripping along with the grain. You don't want to rip it against the grain of the paper. Like, for example, this one. See, it's coming off in little clumps. That's not very nice. That's not very nice either. Well, that one's okay, but no, not really. The problem with all these is that I'm ripping against the grain. So you find the grain of the paper, and you tear along the grain, and then you get strips like these. Ooh. That's perfect. I'm using wheat paste for. I use wheat paste for the shoes, but for these babies, I made these babies entirely with rice paste. But you can't really tell a difference when it's done. It's just a personal preference, I guess. Ooh, so thoroughly saturated. Ooh. First, use newspaper. Then, after you use at least maybe 2 or 3 layers of newspaper, then you can use a layer of regular newsprint. You're supposed to use regular newsprint. I'm going to have to make these small because look at this balloon. It's kind of maybe. So when you rip up the paper, you might think, oh, well, I'll just use scissors and I'll cut up the newspaper. That's not really a good idea. The thing is, here, get really close to it. You can see all the little, like, paper fibers hanging out of the paper. And that's really good when you make paper mache, because when you make paper mache sculptures, what's going to happen is that these fibers, they get all wet and they get, saturated with the paste or whatever. And then they lay on top of the other papers and they, like, make it blend in smooth together. If you just cut up a piece of paper and then make paper mache out of that, it's not going to really blend together. It's not going to have any little hair fibers hanging out on the edges. It's just going to be a clean. So, I've got the whole first entire layer here done. Now, when you're making paper mache, you don't actually have to wait for the whole first entire layer to dry before you do the second one. You can just do 2 or 3 layers if you want. But we're going to have to do at least 3 layers. I don't know. I'm going to try to dry it a little bit just because I want to. But anyways, in the meantime, okay, I'm going to talk about these. So remember when I told you, rip along the grain, not against the grain? Well, okay, when I made these shoes, that's actually, I didn't do that, so I broke my own rule. It's not my rule. It's the rule of paper mache. But anyways, so the point of this is that it was my stripper shoes, but then I used the escorts ads from the back of the Stranger and like Seattle Weekly and stuff. So for me to rip the ads would have been like defeating the purpose of it. You wouldn't want ripped ads. You want to be able to see the ads. So I did actually have to cut them. But like I did 2 or 3 layers of regular newspaper print, and then I cut up like the ads and put them on here. But so you can break the rules if it's a specific reason, And then afterwards, I sprayed like ceramic glaze on top of it. So that was how I made these. See, look, there's the apple and the lusty lady. Aww. So anyways, then the babies. Now this I made with wheat paste. See, when you get your final product, you're not going to be able to tell the difference between if you did it with rice paste or wheat paste. I did this with rice paste. This I did with the flour wheat paste. So you can't really tell a difference by the finished product at all. Was there something specific I was going to say about these babies? Okay, with the babies, yeah, I had a baby doll. And so I put the paper mache on top of the baby doll. So remember I was explaining the balloon, we'll just pop the balloon, no big deal. But with the baby doll, I had to put petroleum jelly on the baby doll and then make all these layers of paper mache on top, and then I painted it with acrylic paint. If you're going to paint on top of a paper mache sculpture, it's probably best to use acrylic paint. Maybe you could use tempera paint. If you use oil paint, it would just be really disgusting and it would be stupid. It would like make the whole project soggy and oily and it would be bad. So yeah, okay. Anyways, now with the pregnant woman, that was flour paste, and you know I used a mannequin. So again, on the mannequin I put petroleum jelly on the mannequin, and then you know I ripped up some paper and used the flour paste and, you know, made the, like, at least 3 layers. I had to build her up. The stomach, I used a regular balloon and I put it, it was not a pregnant mannequin, it was a regular mannequin. And so I blew up a balloon and I put it on her stomach and then I paper mache'd on top of it. And then it looked really bad actually because it just looked like a stomach with an erection, you know. So I had to take up like crumpled up paper and I had to like mold it around there, and or I had to build it up layer on top of layer on top of layer until it looked like a nice round smooth belly, you know. And then the chi-chis, I built up the chi-chis on the pregnant woman too by the same thing. I balled up paper and I put it on the mannequin's chest and I put layer of layer on top of it, and then you know the pubic hair is actual fake top of it. And then with the chi-chi's bank, it was again, it was a mannequin. It was the mannequin. I didn't build up the breasts to make them bigger. Like with the pregnant woman, I built up really big breasts because I figured she was pregnant. She needed big breasts. And like I don't know, made that out of paper mache, out of flour paste and paper mache, and I painted it with acrylic, and then I put the tassels on. The tassels were not paper mache, of course. You know, and then I cut a hole in the chest to make it a bank, you know, and yeah, that's how that worked. Paper mache. I don't know why I didn't tell you guys a little bit more about the history of paper mache. I should have told you a little bit more about the history of paper mache. It was started in China, and you know, it seems like Chinese start everything, you know, like people think of like pasta or noodles as like Italian. It's like, no, Chinese invented noodles. Well, I guess, I don't know. Noodles are all over Asia. So, I don't know. It seems like if you look at the history of anything, it always seems like it started in China. So, paper mache started in China. And this is the weird thing. When Chinese very first started using paper mache, they used it to make helmets. So, that seems very counterintuitive. Very, very counterintuitive, because I don't see how paper mache is going to protect your head. But, you know, old people are tough, you know what I mean, right? Yeah. So, yeah, there was that. So, when I was making the long, like, phallic paper mache things, I was just blowing up a long balloon to make balloon animals, and I was paper macheing it. I can't believe I didn't tell you, but it was inspired by Eva Hesse. It was definitely inspired by her artwork. I can show you the specific sculpture that she did that I was like, oh, I could do. I was just looking for something. I needed to paper mache something to do the demo. And so I was looking through I guess I was looking at a book of her artwork, and I was like, oh, I could do that in paper mache. Okay, here's Eva Hesse. And so she was a very interesting artist. I don't know why I didn't tell you about Eva Hesse. I should have totally told you about her. She kind of had a sad life. She died at like 34 or something. She was a sculptor, and she was working with material that a lot of artists hadn't worked. A lot of visual artists had not worked with before. Like, she was one of the very first artists to work with latex and plastics, and you know, I mean, like, we take plastic for granted now. Everything is plastic now. But, you know, I mean, in the 1960s, there was a lot of stuff in plastic, I'm sure, but just no way near like it is now. Everything is plastic now. And some people said maybe that was how she passed away. She had like a brain tumor. Maybe she was working with this material that no visual artist had worked with before. But, and so maybe that caused it. I don't know. But so yeah, this picture is her with plastic wrap making some sculpture. But so the paper mache, where I was like paper macheing the long balloons, it very obviously looks like one of her sculptures. And I'll show you that sculpture. But I can't believe I didn't tell you that in the show. Why didn't I tell you that in the show? But what I'm gonna do is I am going to make like a big huge perfume bottle. And this fish tank is going to be the body of the perfume bottle. Yeah. And so, yeah. So, you see? Right there you go. You'll see when it's done. You'll see. So, Elmer's glue, or any kind of glue, really. And then water. And that's just like wheat paste, or just like rice paste. Now, remember the release agent? Remember that? Yeah. So, I don't have lube, like Vaseline or something like that to put on here. So I'm just using lotion. That might be not the greatest release agent in the world, but it's the release agent that I have. It's the release agent that I have access to. And what this is going to do, again, is prevent the paper mache from sticking. Awesome. Okay, now when I'm done with all my layers, what I'm going to do is, I told you I was going to make a perfume bottle, right? Ooh, perfume bottle, how beautiful. Ooh. Well, the reason why is because after Elizabeth Taylor died, I collected all these magazines, you know, of Elizabeth Taylor. Oh, and this is newspaper right here. All these pictures of Elizabeth Taylor and tabloids. Most people wouldn't think tabloids are good, but tabloids are like newspaper type paper, and so for paper mache, tabloids would work out just fine. Anyways, so after I'm done making the whole entire perfume bottle, then I'm gonna paper mache a bunch of pictures of Elizabeth Taylor on top, because you know Elizabeth Taylor, she's famous for perfume, you know, perfume and jewelry. So I guess it's gonna be like a Elizabeth Taylor tribute kind of artwork. Woo! So yeah. So, okay, so gotta work on the third layer. I'm done tearing all these up. Again, I got my glue water in here. Now sometimes, oh, there's a lot of glue on this one. That's good, right? That's perfectly good. If it's not conforming to the object good enough, a lot of times that means your strips are too big. If you get littler strips, like this is quite little, but you know, whatever, then that will conform to the shape a little bit better. Okay, so here it is the very next morning. The paper mache is completely dry. We're going to see if I can cut it off. Layer on there, and I'll let that layer completely dry. The thing is, when you put layer on top of layer on top of layer, sometimes the weight of it, when it's wet, can get so heavy it will sink in and it won't maintain its shape. So that was fine. I could put 3 layers on when I was doing it on the fish tank, because the fish tank is not going to collapse in on itself. But now it's, you know, not in the fish tank anymore. It's
The only thing that's left is I need to paper mache the ball again.
well, it looked kind of like a perfume bottle. Some people didn't read it as a perfume bottle. A few people guessed it was a bomb, which it does kind of look like a bomb, I guess, you know, like the stereotypical bomb, like on a TV show. And so I think a way that I could have fixed that problem, I think, you know, like on perfume bottles, the old tiny perfume bottles or whatever, you know, there's the bottle and then there's the little cord and then the pump thing. A lot of times it has tassels at the end. That's what I should have done. I should have put tassels at the end of it. And then I think people would have definitely read it as a perfume bottle and not a bomb. So some of those old-timey perfume bottles, they just have a pump and they don't have tassels at the end, you know, but some of them, a lot of them do have the tassels at the end. So in retrospect now, you know, making that Elizabeth. So the Elizabeth Taylor perfume bottle, if I would have put tassels on it, I might would still have it. I might would be a little bit more impressed with it, and I might would be like, oh, this was super cool. Some people did get it. So a lot of people did get that it was supposed to be a perfume bottle, but there was a few people who said, is that a bomb, you know? And then I guess it doesn't make any sense. Why does it have Elizabeth Taylor all over it if it's a bomb, you know? I guess the statement could be Elizabeth Taylor, she was the bomb, you know? I don't know. Okay, so yeah, art critique in retrospect of the Elizabeth Taylor perfume bottle. I should have put tassels at the end. Oh, paper mache, right? There was one paper mache project I did when I lived in Japan at the very last school that I taught at. I was an English teacher there, and they, for whatever reason, the boss asked me to make a piñata. I don't quite 100% remember the details of it. It was some kind of an international day, and so they wanted a piñata. I'm not sure how Mexico fits into it. You know? I mean, because like this was an English teaching school. Normally, like they want something like American or British or Australian or something. I don't know. So I think just International Day or something. They wanted a piñata. Okay, so I made a pig. Basically, I just chose a pig because I knew how to make that. You take a balloon, kind of an oblong one, and you blow it up, and you put the paper mache around it. And the great thing about balloons is you can pop it. You don't need a release agent on a balloon. You know what I mean? And then for his 4 little legs, I used a toilet paper roll. I cut it in half so it was like about that big, and then it could be his 4 little legs. And then I had pink tissue paper. And so after I made the whole entire pig, and the snout was also a toilet paper roll. And then his ears. What did I use for his ears? I don't remember maybe just paper. Lots of newspaper. You can see on the newspaper it was Japan because like it's all Japanese, And what else did I? Oh yeah, okay. So I used that tissue paper. Well, I painted him pink. After it was all done, I let him dry. I probably put like 3 layers on him. I painted him pink with like acrylic paint. And then I put the pink tissue paper. I cut out little squares and I put a pink tissue paper all around him. And then for his face, I just drew I had a Sharpie and I drew a face, And the little toilet paper roll that was his nose, I drew 2 little oval, for his snout, And I think I cut a little at the bottom, maybe the stomach for where you could put the candy in. And I guess it did take a while. I should have had a little bit better control over his face. Like his face was like turned this way. And I don't know. His face was also a balloon. His face was a balloon that was like kind of up. It was like a light bulb almost. It was like bigger here, and then here it got kind of oblong, and then I put the snout on it. The toilet paper snout on it. Okay, so it was kind of fragile. I mean, it was strong. It was almost like, it was like a soft sculpture, maybe. A paper mache sculpture, I guess. It was more fragile than what I imagine, like, when you see, I don't know, I mean, here in LA, you see the big Mexican piñatas, they're like big and round, right? And then they have all these cones on them or something. You see a lot of piñatas here, and they just seem stronger. I guess they have a stronger frame, and then they're putting paper mache around it. My pig was good. It was sturdy enough to sit on the table and it wouldn't collapse. You know what I mean? Like, I put 3 layers on it and I let it dry all the way, and but it just wasn't quite as sturdy as I see other piñatas. When I took it to school, my boss and the teacher's assistant, every Japanese school, they would have like if it was a good Japanese school or anyway halfway decent Japanese school, they would always have like a Japanese assistant that knew English and Japanese, so she could translate some stuff, So everybody was really impressed with this piñata. And they were like, well, we don't want to beat it up because it looks like you worked on it a really long time, And so they just kind of kept it in the office. And I think it was IAC. They just sort of kept it in the office. I guess they liked it, And so, yeah, that was the piñata that I made. The pig piñata that I made. That ended up just kind of, it was supposed to be a piñata, but I guess it just ended up being a pig sculpture. Because they didn't use it as a piñata, So, yeah.